All right, good morning, everyone, and happy Thursday. I'm Jenny McCullum, the Chief Procurement Officer for JEA and the Chair of the Awards Committee. I'd like to call the August 19th, 2021 meeting to order. We do have a quorum with Joe Arfano, Stephen Datz, and Hai Vu on site. And then we also have Todd Skinner in for Ricky Erickson and Laura Dutton via WebEx. OGC is represented by David Miggett, and Budget is represented by Lori Whitmer. And before we get started on the agenda, I'd like to ask if there was any public comment that came in via email before the meeting started, or any public attendance in the room.
No public comments.
Okay, thanks, Lynn. And I'll ask if there's anyone on the call that would like to make a public comment on today's agenda items. All right, hearing none, we will walk through each of our agenda items individually, and I will ask the committee if we have any questions or comments. After we get through any questions, we will then move to a motion to approve and a second, and then I'll roll call through each individual committee members to get their individual approval. We will start with the meeting minutes from our August 12th, 2021 meeting. Do we have any questions or comments? All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve the meeting minutes from August 12th.
Joe Arfano, so moved.
Stephen Datz, second.
Thank you. We'll roll call through the committee to approve the meeting minutes excuse me, from August 12th, 2021, starting with Joe Arfano.
Approved.
Stephen Datz.
Approved.
Hai Vu.
Approved.
Laura Dutton.
Approved.
And Todd Skinner.
Approved.
Thank you. Award number 2, this was a request for proposal. This is for our warehouse management system for licensing, implementation, support, maintenance, and training. We have a recommended awardee is Mod 43 Inc. in the amount of $397,200. I'll note that this is a 3-year award with 2 1-year optional renewals, and what that is for the support and maintenance. So we'll have a project implementation timeline, and then they will continue to support JEA for 3 years, and then we'll have 2 1-optional renewals of support at that time. I'll get into a little bit of background, but first, just as a note, we received 2 bids. One of them was disqualified for not meeting the minimum requirements. And so we did move forward in reviewing Mod 43 Inc., and they were deemed responsive and responsible. So if we look at the total cost of this implementation, which also again includes the support and maintenance for 3 years, which is about $30,000 annually. This also includes 50 licenses. So if we look at all of that, and then there's a little over $25,000 for training. So that makes up the award total with the implementation cost of these little under $400,000. I'll also note that this has been reviewed and approved by the ERP steering committee. So they have also seen this and have signed off on it. And as a note, the new software solution will perform all warehouse functions, which will improve material handling efficiencies while reducing costs due to manual work entry and inaccurate inventories. So this will positively impact the storeroom, the service center crews, our contractors, our inventory planning and procurement groups. So this is holistically something that will benefit JEA as a whole. So I'm going to pause there and see if the committee has any questions or comments.
Hey, Jenny, this is Hai. Just a question. The core partners was disqualified, but they received a score. So were they evaluated before we determined they were disqualified? Or?
No, so we looked at the minimum qualifications before we evaluate. We wouldn't evaluate if they don't meet the minimum quals. So they didn't make it past that first initial evaluation after the bids were submitted. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was just, normally you don't see a score for a disqualified firm and they received a score. That's why I was curious.
Oh, you see the score. That's actually a great catch. I'll have Nathan, if he's on, comment on that. Typically, we do not, we wouldn't score them if they don't meet the minimum qualifications, but there might have been a delay in getting those references back.
Yeah, exactly, Jenny. This is Nathan. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, that's exactly it, Jenny. We had a delay and quite a bit of delay in getting the reference checks done for core partners. So in parallel, when we're getting those reference checks done, we actually had the evaluators continue to evaluate, and we left the score visible to everyone to show that they were still scored while we were getting that minimum qualification check done, and that it was very clear, even if we had qualified them, that they were that Mod 43 was well higher qualified in every category, regardless of the scoring and the min qual checks. So we left that in there for that purpose. But yeah, you're correct. Normally we wouldn't show that score in there, but we left it in there for that reason.
Okay, thanks, Nathan. Yeah, sometimes if we've got a tight timeline while we're trying to get the reference checks. Also, if we feel like they don't meet the minimum qualifications after the first pass, we will ask them to provide additional references if we didn't get in touch with someone or they felt like they still could meet it. So we go through kind of a process if they don't meet the minimum qualifications to really try and make sure that we have that competition and give them that opportunity. But for this one, it looked like they just couldn't pull that part out to be successful. Any other questions or comments?
Todd, I've got a question.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Todd.
On page 12, 1.31, there's some, I think it's probably just a typo. There's a 9 a.m. to 5 a.m. And I guess two questions. One, is it a typo? And if it is 9 to 5 p.m., is that acceptable? Does this stop warehouse operations if we can't, if the software's not working?
Thanks, Todd. I'll let Nathan jump in on any clarifications that were made on the workbook.
I believe this is Nathan again. So you're referring to the 9 to 5 and the maintenance and support item. Nick, do you want to jump in on that? I know that was that specifically. I'm not sure if you can answer that, Nick. This is
Nathan. If I could, this is Nathan. If I could, this is Ernie.
Okay, go ahead, Aaron.
Todd, to answer your question, that is their basic hours. Nothing about WMS would ever stop the warehouse operations from presenting. They were actually business continuity. Nothing about WMS would ever stop the warehouse from being able to transact.
Okay, awesome. Is it supposed to be 9 a.m. to 5 p.m.?
Yes, that's a 9 to 5. The AM is a typo. That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Todd, we'll make a note. If Nathan, could you just make a note on the bid workbook?
Sure, yeah,
we'll get that minor.
Cleaned up.
Yeah, the minor irregularity on that one. That would be good for our backup as well. Thank you. All right, I will ask for a motion to approve award number 2.
Harvey, so moved.
Laura Dutton, second. Thank you, Hi and Laura. We'll roll call through the committee to approve award number 2, starting with Highview.
Approved.
Laura Dutton. Approved. Todd Skinner.
Approved.
Joe Arfano.
Approved.
And Stephen Datt.
Approved.
Thank you. Award number 3 is a request for proposal. This is for our integrated resource planning for electric generation planning group. And this is to provide a near-term and long-term strategic recommendations with alternatives to address our system reliability, retirement and replacement of aging generating plants, solar facilities, land requirements, increased customer-owned distributed energy resources, demand-side management, energy efficiency adoption, increased electrification adoption. So you can see this is quite a large scope for the vendor. And we have a project completion date of December of 2023 for them to get through this scope and for them to provide feedback on these areas. Black & Veatch Management Consulting is our recommended awardee, excuse me, in the amount of $1,705,392. We received 6 proposals, so good competition on this one. We looked at each of the companies. They submitted job titles, hours for forecasts to do all of the different scopes of work. And we reviewed those comparatively between the submitting respondents. The hours, it'll just to note, the hours submitted by Black & Veatch was on the lower end to the middle range of the submitting companies for the various deliverables, which means they were proposing they could do this a little bit faster than some of the others. And I think some of the expertise that Black & Veatch has allows them or affords them the ability to do that. We also compared their rates. So back in 2018, rate design consulting services, if we look at the weighted average hourly rates, it was about $271. And if we compare it to this, we're looking at $268 an hour. So a slight reduction back from 2018, but also likely just a different scope of what we're asking them to do. And then I'll also note that our original budget of $1.2 million didn't have some of the items that were negotiated or put into the scope when we went out to bid. And so it is lower than where we landed for the award amount. But in looking at the increased scope of services from the time that we did the budget estimate to hitting the street, there was an increase. And when we compare the rates, we're really negotiating these from the rates with the hours that they are going to perform each task. So we have vetted this quite a bit and feel comfortable moving forward. So I'll pause there and ask the committee if you guys have any questions. All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve award number 3.
Joe
Laura Dutton, so
Arfano.
moved. I'm going with Laura. Laura had a motion. Can I get a second?
Joe Arfano, second.
Thanks, Joe. We'll roll call through the committee to approve award number 3, starting with Laura Dutton. Approved. Joe Arfano.
Approved.
Hai Vu.
Approved.
Stephen Datt.
Approved.
And Todd Skinner.
Approved.
Thank you. Award number 4 was an IFB. This is for NGS coal terminal dredging. So the scope of work covers the mobilization, demob, and all equipment, labor, and supervision to complete dredging services of approximately 11,000 cubic yards of spoils material, minimum depth of 40 feet. So the dredging company will provide environmental reports to the Jacksonville Port Authority and JEA regarding the materials to be dredged prior to the commencement of the work. And JEA will conduct a separate hydrographic survey to validate the results prior to the release of the payment and performance bond. I will note this is a ratification. We spoke with Ricky last week, and the need for us to get this done in a timely manner was all hinging upon the first step, which is the sampling plan and the sampling to be approved by JAXPORT prior to us dredging. So the ratification, with his approval, we moved forward with a $40,000 PO to Manson Construction at the beginning of this week so they could start performing the sampling. I'll also note that this is a smaller job for them. They do a lot of work for JAXPORT, and so we're trying to fit this in a 6-week time frame when they're doing work with JAXPORT, and so we're trying to work with them to get a schedule to get this done on time. So the sooner we could get things moving, the better chance of us being able to do this by the end of this fiscal year. The recommended awardee, as I said, Manson Construction Co., they are, the amount is $607,200. Again, we hope to have this done by September 30th of this year. We only received one bid. We did quite a bit of review of the JAXPORT agreement that they have with Manson prior to bidding it out. We were looking at piggybacking off of their contract because they do work out there with them regularly, but the scope was very, very specific, and we had a very small project that needed to be done, and the time frame, was something that we needed to put into our requirements as well. So we ended up not piggybacking and went out to bid. So we've been working through this after the requirements came to us that we needed to do the dredging, which is required to release. There's some drafting restrictions, and so if we don't meet those, it can cause an increase in price per ton of the coal shipped to JEA if full draft allowance is not restored. So we've got to get this done in a timely manner, and we do this about every 8 to 10 years. So this is something that we're going to have to, or that we do on a regular basis with them every, not regular, but every 8 to 10 years is something that we've looked at. We do have some historic pricing because we do this about every 10 years. So when we look back, we can see over the years the pricing has increased. We started in 2010, it was about $17 per cubic yard. And in 2015, we had to do some, and it was about $23 per cubic yard. This solicitation is $28 per cubic yard. So with all things considered, we feel like the pricing per yard is reasonable. I did a lot of talking on this one, but just wanted to make sure you guys understood the full picture, kind of what we did from a piggyback research to then having to bid it out, only getting one bid. I'll note that we did push this out to quite a bit. Quite a few vendors, but their comments back were the limited project size, so just a very small project for the company to bid on. The incumbent, again, for JAXPORT is already out there in the area, and then the equipment capabilities and the project turnaround time. So this is where we landed with one bid. So I'll pause and ask the committee for any questions or comments.
Just a quick question on the schedule. How feasible is the completion schedule of September 30th? Because do we still need to get contract execution and bonds and all that for this contract? And how much time does that really leave them to do the work?
Rodney, I'll let Rodney jump in. He's got some specifics on the timing. We've checked into all of that.
Hey, this is Rodney Lovegren. So we already pushed in Zykus the contract. Heather Beard, the contracts group, her folks already have sent the draft of the contract pending this award approval to be processed and reviewed. So if we get the approval today for this particular one, we're going to be pushing to send it out to the vendor with as soon as we get the signature from Jay, Stowe, the CEO. And then Manson has said they'll expedite and support. I've been in contact with the Port Authority. They're waiting for the sampling plan to come across, and as soon as that comes across, they're going to do their review and approval. So we're pushing to get everything, to have them be able to mobilize and be out there within about 3 weeks. So, and as long as the dredging scheduling, which Jacksport and Manson are also working through for their schedule, turns out all right, we should be hopefully out there on the river sometime the second week of September. And they said a 5 to 7 day dredge period to turn around and do the work. So that's where we're at schedule-wise.
Thanks, Rodney. Any
Jenny,
other questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Stephen. Just validate the advertisement and pre-bid meeting dates.
Yep, we'll look at those.
Okay.
Looks like the pre-bid happened before we advertised. I don't think that was accurate.
No, yeah, that's probably not right. I'll check
May
it
have
out.
just swapped them.
Yeah, thank you. We'll update that. Any other questions or comments? I'll just note that with Todd and Ricky's place, we've had multiple conversations with him on this, and he has approved this as well. So if that gives you guys any other confidence in approving.
Stephen Dash,
I'll ask
motion
for-
to approve.
Thanks, Stephen.
Joe Orfano, second.
Thanks, Joe. We'll roll call through the committee to approve award number 4, starting with Stephen Datz.
Approved.
Joe Orfano.
Approved.
Hai Vu.
Approved.
Todd Skinner. And Laura Dutton.
Approved.
Thank you. Award number 5 is a request for proposal. This is for occupational medical services. This is JEA requires an on-site medical service company to facilitate the health and safety of its employees and meet the business needs of associated processes. This contract will staff, furnish, maintain, and perform medical and administrative services at the JEA Medical Clinic that we have located on Pearl Street. Jacksonville Now Urgent Care LLC is our recommended awardee in the amount of $1,456,440. I'll make a note that that is our budget estimate. So we have awarded this to budget, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. This is a 3-year award initially with 3 optional 1-year renewals. We received 3 proposals, and we did have to disqualify 1. Even after extensive addendum conversation to answer questions, they still did not provide inclusive pricing from a monthly perspective, and so we couldn't compare apples to apples of what they had submitted, so we had to disqualify them. But I'll note that all of the companies, the other 2 companies, were evaluated on rates, professional experience, past performance, company experience, and design approach. When we are looking at the all-inclusive monthly rate between the current contract and the new contract, we are looking at about a 25% increase, a little over $250,000 over the 3-year period. We are attributing that to the medical staff price increases, and it should be noted that our current service provider notified JEA earlier in the year that they would not be interested in continuing to provide these services. So I think part of that had to do with the pricing and locking in pricing since we've had this contract with them for so long. And so if we look at kind of the percent increase, which is quite, 25% increase is quite substantial. This original contract that we have was put in place back in 2014. And so if we look at kind of them holding prices and us looking at the increase over the years, and then just the increase in the medical services costs over the last year and a half due to COVID, we feel pretty comfortable moving forward with this company. I will note, if you'll look at the 3-year amount of the little over 1.5 that they submitted, this was approximately 17% higher than our forecast. We had forecasted it about a 10% increase when we went out to bid. And the business has decided to reduce that amount because they feel like they can fall within their budget services. There's part of the workbook that are optional, and they felt that those were pretty high. And they think they can stay within their budget amount by not using some of that optional pricing, which kind of is driving up some of the costs. Not in the all-inclusive monthly rate, but in the optional services that were included in our budget. So I will pause and I will see if Paul Thomas has anything that he wants to add, or if I misstated anything. This is your chance to jump in.
Good morning, Jenny. Thank you. The only additional item I might add too on the pricing, this vendor did have the contract prior to this actual contract period, and rates didn't increase then. So that stretch of flat pricing is probably closer to a decade at this point. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the awards committee?
Hey, Jenny, this is Hi. I have to ask. So I'm asking about I'm curious about the scoring. I'm not critiquing in any way, but I'm curious, right? Because the difference between the first and second ranked team, the pricing is about $500,000. So, and the quotational rates, the difference between the first and second, the difference of $500,000 is the difference of around 8.7 points. Right? That's how much $500,000 is worth, 8.7 points. So I'm curious, is what was the difference in the design approach between the two firms that all three evaluators have such a wide range, essentially 13, 14 point difference? So the design approach was essentially made up for the price difference. And the company and the professional experiences were very similar. So I'm trying to figure out what was the difference in the design approach for the medical suppliers of the professional medical staff that caused such a wide spread in the scoring that affected the results.
That's a great question. Paul, do you want to take that from a scoring perspective and what you saw when you evaluated the two companies and what stood out from their design approach and work plan compared to the other company? Sure.
Overall, they can best overall value. The primary bidder there, the proposed number one, they were open essentially 363 days a week. Primary Plus was closed on Wednesdays, so that would not provide full access to our employees throughout the work week. And so that, in terms of services to the work groups, that certainly presented some challenge. The QC program for Care Now was very detailed versus Primary Plus. Care Now actually voluntarily attained urgent care accreditation, which neither of the other two bidders had, including the one that was disqualified. And, you know, between the award amount and I think, which is now 1,450,000, the other vendor was, I think, 1,800,000. The gap's probably 400, but to highest point, that's a pretty big gap. But those were the top three or four items in terms of the quality of the design approach.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Any other
Dennis?
questions or comments?
Yeah, this is Stephen. Just going back to page 98, I'm just curious, where is the reference to the 258,000? It's listed, but is it anywhere in the documentation?
In the backup documentation?
Yeah, as to how you arrived at the 258,000?
So we have some just kind of high level in the background. So the current contract is about is $27,756 per month, and the new one is $34,950. And so when Elaine looked at that, she did a comparison and over the 3-year period of the 36 months, determined the percentage that way.
Okay. All right. So it's the monthly. Okay, I got you. And
yeah,
then,
we were looking at just the all-inclusive. We weren't looking at the optional services because we don't know if we'll use those or not. So we just were comparing apples to apples.
Okay. And then on page 107, is there any reference to the forecast budget estimate? Is that shown anywhere? Because I believe it's different than the budget estimate. The 11.6% higher. So $1,456,440, approximately 11.6.
Hey, Stephen, this is Elaine Selders. That 11.6%, it came from their original bid, which I think is under the bidder amount. The 3-year amount was originally 1.532.
Right.
And so I think that's where we originally were going to do 510,720 for all 3 years, but after discussing with Paul and Tony, we decided to reduce it to the budget of 435 for fiscal year 22.
Okay.
So
that would have been like 5.2% higher.
okay. Yes, and maybe, yeah, okay, we can adjust that.
Yeah, because the value would have been like $1,305,053 is where you would have started.
Yeah, it would have been 5%.
I think we made some changes there at the last minute where I was going with the original, possibly the original budget, or I'm not sure. Yeah, but we can definitely correct that. We'll get it fixed up.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Make it accurate. Yeah, no problem.
Thanks, Stephen. Any other questions? All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve award number 5.
Howard, so moved.
Stephen Dat, second.
Thank you. We'll roll call through the committee to approve award number 5, and I'll just note we'll update the backup. That's not a part of the award document, but the backup documentation to show that reduction in the increase. And I will roll call through the committee, starting with Haivu.
Approved.
Stephen Dat.
Approved.
Joe Arfano.
Approved.
Laura Dutton.
Approved.
And Todd Skinner.
Approved.
Thank you. Award number 6 is a request for proposal. This is for subsurface utility engineering and locate services. Primarily will be in our Nassau County, Duval County, and St. Johns County areas on an as-needed basis. So none of the quantity of work is guaranteed. We just made some estimates on what we think that they're going to have to do over the 3-year period. And the scope is to physically locate and identify underground utility lines by providing quality level A service, otherwise known as testing holing or potholing, to locate a utility horizontally and vertically by survey measurements. ETM Surveying and Mapping, Inc. is our recommended awardee. And again, since we estimated the quantities, we are awarding to the budget, and of the $500,000 that we have, this is a 3-year period with 2 1-year optional renewals. I will note that we have we did have a 5% evaluation criteria in when we were looking at the matrix for scoring, so that wasn't a solid requirement. They got additional points if they added JSEB, and so it looks like we've got some JSEB participation there with the Smith Surveying Group. We had quite a few proposals. There were 6 of them. And the negotiations with ETM Surveying and Mapping were successful. And when we're looking at the unit prices for some of the individual task orders that they do for us throughout our service territory, the rates were comparable to that. And I'll note that the task orders that will be performed under this contract will be limited to the Florida statute 287.055, which is our Consultants Competitive Negotiation Act, so which we lovingly refer to as CCNA. And so what that does is that if there's an estimated construction cost of an individual project that doesn't exceed $4 million, we can use this for that. And then also, if there was a professional services for an individual study that doesn't exceed $500,000, we can utilize this contract. So this gives us a 3-year continuing services contract for these services, more for kind of the smaller end projects that are related to our statute, our Florida statutes. So I'll pause and ask if there are any questions or comments from the committee. All right, seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve award number 6.
Hi, Boo, so moved.
Thanks, Hi. Can I get a second?
Joe Orfano, second.
Thank you. We'll roll call through the committee to approve award number 6, starting with Haizu.
Approved.
Joe Orfano.
Approved.
Stephen Datz.
Approved.
Laura Dutton. Laura, are you there? I think you're still on mute. You may be a double mute. Let's go to Todd Skinner. Thanks, Todd. And Laura, one more time. Approved. Did it work? Yay. Yep. It worked. It's like your bus schedule. It's kind of intermittent. All right, thank you. That's okay. Award number 7 is a contract amendment / change order. This is for some consulting services for our Oracle customer to meter, so our C2M project, and this is for director support and critical gap assessments. We bid this out. Originally, it was ended up coming in informally. So this is the first time the awards committee is seeing this. But the original scope of work was bid out to provide oversight and guidance services or governance services for the successful completion of the JEA's project transition from our CC&B Oracle module to the C2M, which is our customer to meter module. The services included a project director to work alongside JEA and our vendor, Oracle, and assessment services to add critical path items impacting the project. So we have been working with Red Clay Consulting, Inc. Through this original competitively bid solicitation, and the amount was just under $300,000. And we bid it out back in May, and we did only receive one response. And we reviewed that one response on the past performance, professional staff experience, design approach, and work plan, and felt good about Red Clay Consulting and moved forward with an informal PO. So we're coming to the committee because we're going over that $300,000 with this change order request. And this is for additional funds in the amount of $517,535. And this is for additional services needed for the implementation support from Red Clay Consulting for our C2M project. The payment for this change order will be based on lump sum milestone payments once the milestones are completed and accepted by JEA. Red Clay provided a fixed milestone-based proposal at a 29% discount. And we just want to also note that we will be coming back to the awards committee to request additional funds and services for FY22. But that is undetermined as to what we're going to need. So we are just letting the committee know that you'll see this again. I'll note that we are estimating our go live. It was supposed to be, I think it was September of this year. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stephen, but now we're looking at February. Okay, February of 2022. And so this will bleed into the next fiscal year. But they've done a really great job working with us on this specific project. So we want to add some of the scope to continue their journey with us and working with Oracle. So this is just to help us have a successful go live on the C2M side. And I don't, Stephen, or if there's anyone from the business that wants to add anything that I might have left off that would be important to mention, I'll go ahead and open up the floor.
I would just add that Red Clay has engaged quickly, has delivered on the initial engagement. This amendment basically represents about a dozen folks from Red Clay that have brought in specific expertise to get the project on track and moving forward. Jenny, to your point, we're working on a contract amendment that carries us from October probably through March timeframe to post-go live support. So we will be coming back within the next, I hope, within the next couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, with an amendment that shows what that scope of work is for fiscal year 22. We're also doing the same with Oracle. So based on the original Labor Day go live, those activities carry us out through the end of this fiscal year. So we're looking at what engagement we need from them, from the Oracle consulting services as well, and getting that blend between Red Clay, Oracle, and JEA. And to the extent possible, we're trying to do this as a fixed cost engagement so that we know where the end is and what the all-in cost will be. It's going to be more of a challenge with Oracle because there's so many unknowns that we're working through. But they've also been part of this team in helping to move the project forward.
This is Joe. I'll add that the preliminary feedback from my finance team's been positive regarding Red Clay. So this is a positive step for this project.
Thanks, Joe. Any other questions or comments?
Yeah, just have a general question. So red clay was selected for a specific task, and
the original request was basically to do a critical gap assessment. So they came in, did a triage of where we were, what we had, and then identified where we needed additional resources to help address issues. So there's a work stream that they've developed where they've compartmentalized all the different activities, and then they're bringing in additional resources to supplement JEA and the technical services and the business side of JEA, and kind of accelerate and control the remaining activities. So the result of that critical gap assessment was, here's a plan that allows us to move forward and hit these milestones, critical path milestones.
And they are doing a great job, so we think it's efficient and effective for us to award the amendments to red clay. I'm asking because I'm looking at it from the awards committee perspective, which is, you go out with an informal bid and then you give a piece, and then you're going to end up with a pretty large contract in the end when you count fiscal year 22.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that that we follow the rule in South.
Yeah, I believe so.
Yes. And that's part of what Stephen was mentioning is the result of the initial procurement with red clay. It resulted in these critical paths and what we need to do to move forward. And so this is the continuation of that. So a change order is appropriate. We could have done it a few different ways, but I think this is appropriate for the continuation of their services.
Thank you.
Yeah, the other risk high is if you break this apart, you're stopping and starting and onboarding additional resources, and it's just very dysfunctional.
Yeah. Especially for this project.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Good conversation on this one. All right, I'll ask for a motion to approve award number 7.
Joe Arfano, so moved.
Thank you, Joe. Can I get a second?
Hi, second.
Thanks, Hi. We'll roll call through the committee to approve award number 7, starting with Joe Arfano.
Approved.
Hi, Vu.
Approved.
Stephen Datz.
Approved.
Laura Dutton. Here. And Todd Skinner.
Approved.
Thank you. We have reviewed all of the award items individually, and they have all been approved for the August 19th, 2021 Awards Committee. I'll ask if there is any other business to come before the Awards Committee. Okay. All right, seeing none, we are adjourned. I just hope everybody has a very safe and happy weekend. Still looking and making sure that we are not getting the hurricanes coming towards us. We have been very fortunate. I like to kind of weigh in every once in a while. If we don't speak of it, I feel like we have a worse outcome. So keep doing what you're doing, crossing your fingers and your toes. I appreciate everybody's support. That is my other hat. So I just keep looking and making sure that we're doing a good job warding them off. So y'all have a great weekend. Be safe.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye, guys.